Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. We are continuing the generative AI series, and I'm very excited because now we're doing some hands-on stuff, right? So in the previous videos, we covered a lot of theory parts. I tried to explain complex topics in simple terms, and now we're going to be doing a lot of hands-on stuff. So we obviously need tools, and when we're talking about machine learning, we need like a database to work with. We're going to be using SingleStore to build our Gen AI applications. And the best part is that you don't need to add a credit card or anything. You can sign up the links, using the links in the description below, and you'll get free credits as well. No need to add a credit card, and you can just play around with it. So you can do that. And in this video, what are we doing in this video? I'm going to walk you through the platform. I'm going to teach you about basics of the platform. We're going to learn about notebooks. So if you don't know, notebooks are like you can execute code line by line. Comes in really handy when you're working with machine learning algorithms. So we'll be learning about those, something around some of the libraries and just working with data and files and all these other things. And then in the next few videos, I'll be making some nice projects. I'll be doing a bunch of videos where we'll be covering some interesting projects to get your hands dirty. And then that will act as a foundation for you to explore the platform yourself and Gen AI more in the future. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Or if you have any suggestions, please do so as well. And make sure you check out the links in the description below, and let's get started. All right, so this is what the dashboard looks like for SingleStore Cloud. And one thing I want to mention is if you've already worked with Jupyter Notebooks, it's sort of like similar with a SingleStore. So the whole way you execute like databases, you work with libraries and stuff, which makes sense, because it's a widely known format, and it doesn't really make sense if SingleStore did it in a different way, unique language for their own platform. Thankfully, they did not. So it's beneficial for the community, and it's going to be very easy for you to adapt. Even if you don't know about Jupyter Notebooks, it's like really simple. Python in itself is like such a simple language. I mean, when you're working with it, So what you need to do is, in order to create a database, you need to create a workspace. Okay, that is simple. So create a workspace, start a workspace, and it's going to give you a database name. So that is okay. Maybe I can try changing it, database_Kunal. Is that taken? Is that taken? No, it's not taken. All right, here we have it. Cool. All right, so here I have my database. As you can see, it's currently empty, like I have no tables. You can create new tables. You can see the documentation, which is pretty cool. But what I'm going to show you is go to the develop section, click on a new notebook. You can also open the SQL editor, and here you can run commands. Like you can see, I ran from users, but obviously I don't have that table yet. It said like, hey, this table does not exist right now. So you can run other SQL commands and create tables and do all sorts of things. But I'm going to go to develop, create a new notebook. You can also import it from a file, personal notebook. I can either do a blank one, or I can say getting started with notebooks. Okay, or SingleStore notebooks basics, right? Let's do the getting started one, or do the basics one. Which one do you want to do? Why am I asking you that? It's a recording. To give it a name, Kunal demo. Create. Loading the notebook. Here we have it. So you can run these commands, if you want to import, for example, this is what I meant. So you have the markdown, which is nice. And you can have like SQL, Python commands or whatever. And here we have the Python command. So I can just run this single line, this single input field, you call it. And it's going to run these lines one by one in Python. If I just click on run, execution started, and it has now imported pandas as PD and Shapely. Cool. Other thing I want to tell you is that they have this AI assistant as well. So if I can just click on SQRL for this block of code, it's going to explain to me what this code does. And that's pretty cool. So it's telling me that this Python code snippet demonstrates how to load a data set from a URL into the pandas data frame. So I can ask it more questions around it on how to get started and other things. And it's also giving me the sources, as you can see over here. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention, which is pretty cool that you get in when working with notebooks in SingleStore. Now, when we talk about pandas and we talk about like what is a data frame and things like that. So imagine like you have used Excel, so you have rows and columns. It's similar to that, but it allows for like more data manipulation and analysis, as we will see in the future videos when we do a lot of hands-on stuff. If I run this block of code, so you can see that URL is not defined because I did not execute the code before it. So for example, I started to execute this code, but I did not execute this code. So my program right now has no idea that this URL exists. That is why it's giving me an error. So first I will execute this. That is executed. So this variable name is set. Now I will just create a function. So def function name parameter return type. It's just returning, just calling this function and then just an if else statement. Here you go. Okay, so now it's printing the data frame in the end. Another thing I want to mention is that it's saying that in the data frame reference, you're saying pandas.read CSV, and then you're giving it some URLs, index column, which should be 0, the first one. You're using the parse data and data type, which is a dictionary, which is sort of like a hash map. If you don't know about that, I've covered a video on that already. Last thing I want to mention is if you just write the name of the variable, it is going to print that. That's sort of how the Jupyter notebook is defined. Other thing I want to mention is if you want to be like, okay, Kunal, how did you know that this function is taking these many parameters? How in the world do you know that? Let me show you. So if I add in, create a duplicate of this cell below, insert a cell below. Okay. So if I say something like pd.read CSV, okay, pd.read CSV, I can just do a question mark. So when you do any function question mark, it's going to give you a whole documentation for that function. So you can see all the parameters it is taking. File path or whatever, URL, index column, as you can see, date format, quoting, double quotes, comments. You can also provide the encoding and also providing the type of the parameter. Okay, database type, data type, and all sorts of things. And then here you have the whole documentation for this. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through all the documentations, but this is something I wanted to tell you. If you're like, okay, Kunal, how in the world do you know this is the thing that I need to provide? If I want to connect to a database, I need to provide this file name or I have to provide this in this order. How do you know that? I have no idea. I don't know it. I'm just going to look at the documentation, just do the question mark, and that's it. Okay. Now we have our data frame. We know the data frame, what data frame is now. Very simple stuff. It's just like rows and columns, but we're going to be able to manipulate it using the Python programming language. Okay, in simple terms. I'll tell you a bit more in detail when we do the hands-on stuff. Now, ingest a data frame into the SingleStore DB table. So it's going to say create the database, import the library to connect to the database, create the connection to the library, ingest the data frame to the newly created database. I think we already have a database. So it's saying here we are using database name variable and the syntax of including Python variables surrounded by, yeah, that's fine. If you want to include a variable name in the Python syntax, Python variables in the SQL cell, then you can use the bracket function. So database name is equal to, I'm going to say database Kunal because it already exists, and I'm going to run this. That's done. Make sure the database from the drop-down menu of the top it also to connect to the database. Okay, I'm going to do that. Hold on. Oh, it's already selected the database. Okay. Make sure you select a database from the drop-down menu at the top of this notebook. Yeah, I have done that. It updates the connection URL to connect to that database. It updates the connection URL to connect to that database. Okay. Now we can use SQL Alchemy and Pandas to upload a data frame. All right. Let's run that. Let's execute it. And I'm going to use the SingleStore Python package. So it's going to create a SQL Alchemy engine, and it's just going to upload the data frame to it. Interact natively with the database using SQL. Okay, I'm going to run the SQL command from database name because it's a variable. So it's going to use database Kunal. Nice. That's good. So now in my database name, I have the pandas file now. Cool. So you understand what I'm saying. When you're working with, like, let's say 1,000,000 queries, okay, 1,000,000 entries in your databases, then what you want to do is you want to add that in like a production ready database or something that can handle it. And that's what we essentially did. So if I scroll up over here, as you can see, it first checked whether the database exists or not. And if it does not, then it's gonna set it as current database, or it's just gonna, create that database if it does not exist. And then we have to make sure that we have selected the database over here because it's gonna use the connection string, connection URL to connect to that database. And we have imported SQL Alchemy, and we have just connected to it using the connection URL that we get. Where are we getting this thing from, this variable from? Because we have connected this database over here in the drop-down menu. Then I just call the connect function. Okay. And then we're installing the SingleStore DB Python package. And this is automatically going to get the SingleStore DB URL environment variable. You can see a bunch of like tables that are created over here as well. And then I'm gonna create a SQL Alchemy engine and connect to it. And I don't have to specify the connection URL because it's automatically detected, as you can see. And then we're going to upload it to the data frame, and that's it. Just 4 steps. Upload it to the data frame dot to SQL, this one, and the connection is equal to this. If exists append means you can add it to the database. You don't have to override it, and the chunk size, right? So lastly, you can see in the end what it's returning. I am not sure what it's returning, so let's check. I think it is the number of entries or whatever. Question mark, run. So parameters, return, number of rows. So it's returning the number of rows. Here you can see 53,000 something rows have been added. That's pretty cool. Just 4 simple steps, very simple lines, 4 lines of code, nothing major. So I don't think you should be worried about it right now because you can definitely check the documentation, learn more. But yeah, this is just a simple SQL query. Okay, I don't have to go into this. So I'm just taking the first 10 entries, and you can see this is reading from my database Kunal. Okay, and then you can add a bunch of like filters and stuff as well. And you can also see the type of the result, which is a SQL result set as well, because this type result set contains, as you can see, methods for converting various other data types like CSVs, dictionaries, and etc. Okay. Now we can also visualize by Plotly. You can also use Matplotlib and other other things. So this is basically the first parameter. So we're going to convert that into something called bar. So it's saying that pd.dataframe pandas.dataframe result1, and it's going to give me the top 5. This is known as slicing of the data frame. So 0 till 5, and this is, I think, exclusive. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there you go. Month and count inspection. I'm just going to plot it. There you go. Count inspection in the months. How cool is that? So we'll be doing more and more such things in the future. But I think this is really nice. One thing I want to show you is you can obviously clean the database, but let me just go to this. if you see it get refreshed, so here you can see that the number of the space it's taking and everything. And if I click on this, here's my whole sort of like database with 22 columns. And I can run SQL commands on it as well. Okay, I showed you this in develop. You can go and open the SQL editor and you can run SQL commands on it. Okay, there's a bunch of other features like you can check out monitoring, query histories, pipelines, and all sorts of things. But we're going to be playing around it a little bit more when we do our projects. Okay, yeah. So you can see how simple it is, and you can obviously download these, export and duplicate. As you can see, it's the .ipynb file, which makes sense because if you have other similar formats, you can just import the file into SingleStore. Now, can use like I can just say Python demo, for example. I can create a blank notebook and you can run all your Python commands and all the machine learning and everything that we'll be doing over here. Actually, when I do the machine learning bootcamp, I'm going to use this because you get the database inbuilt over here. You can run your normal Python commands. It's so simple to connect the database. So here's the thing. There are two strands to it. One thing is if you want to go into the details of how these things work internally, you can go into as much detail as you want. The documentation is pretty comprehensive. You can get involved in the community, how this thing works internally, and every nitty gritty thing in the very last minute details that you can go into. But the real question is why? If you feel like there's a use case for it, go for it. But this is the problem that I see many people face. When they're starting to get into like machine learning, AI, just building applications, instead of gaining as much experience as they can, getting their hands dirty, they're always worried about being a perfectionist. I would say don't do that. The SingleStore people have worked really hard for us that I don't have to worry about the connection string. I don't have to worry about the SingleStore URL, all these environment variables. I can just select my database like this, and that's it. In the previous 4 steps, the last 2 steps you don't even have to worry about. And then people ask me questions, then okay, Kunal, you didn't explain how this thing works internally. Because I could not care less. Their SingleStore team has worked really hard to make it so simple for me. I can just click on this drop down menu. It's going to work like a charm. I don't really care because this is making my life easy. And I have so many things going on. There's a lot on my plate. I just want to get started with building my applications. If there comes a need where I'm like, okay, I have to, understand how these things work internally because this is managed by SingleStore, the database. Okay. By the way, you can also do your own managed databases, and that's a different thing. But if it's being managed by them, why do I need to take the headache? Okay, and that's how you move really fast. Okay, so definitely having a good understanding of how these things work internally is nice, but don't stress over it. Have fun, build some nice applications. When you have that sort of like confidence, you've had a lot of fun, learned a lot of new things, then yeah, if you have time, learn about the integration, like how all these things work on the very minute level if you want. But I think because they have provided such nice abstractions, you don't have to worry about it. Same thing you can argue about Jupyter Notebook. How are you executing every single line at once? Okay, you can check out how Jupyter Notebooks work internally, but why? Why would you want to do that? Same thing I can go on and on with Python. No, you don't have to specify the data type. Okay, why don't you have to do it? I can go check the Python source code. It's open source. Okay, but do I have to? No, because they're providing this abstraction, so I'm going to make use of it. But anyway, if you want to learn more about it, there's the documentation. But I just wanted to stress on the fact that how easy it is to connect to a database, that you don't even have to worry about how it works. Now, something like, yeah, you can run your normal Python code. Hello world. I'm going to call greeting. Obviously, we're going to be utilizing it quite a lot. You can see hello world. But yeah, free for you to use, no credit card or anything required. Make sure you check out the links in the description below to sign up. And in the next few videos, we'll be, doing a lot of nice projects. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Any questions that you have, let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, amazing tool. Going to be pretty helpful on your Python journey, machine learning journey, or generative AI and all sorts of things that we're going to be doing. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day and Bye.